It's nice to think of him sitting there in his sort of wheelchair with a blanket around his knees in some nursing home somewhere and hearing this tune played and go,
Yeah.
hang on a minute.
Yeah.
And the
Everybody else
nurse is
might think
going,
he's a little off, but he's actually it's a
the
completely
nurse is going,
pleasing thought.
of course you wrote it, Mr. Dankworth. Of
Yes,
course you did.
yes, exactly.
Now it's time for your porridge.
It's showtime, folks.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Into the Music. My name is John, that guy is Andy, and we chew up and spit out tunes like no tomorrow. Andy, I hear that you might have a little ditty for me.
You've heard correctly. Those ears are still good despite your advanced age. Um, I got
Why you
get off my lawn. Um, I've got I've got a tune for you. These guys, I know we've talked about them and we've talked about sort of the mastermind behind them and some other stuff. But how familiar are you
the Illuminati?
Yes, that's exactly confirmed. The band Gorillaz. Are you super familiar with their works or not so much?
I have a passing familiarity with them.
Okay. Well, I really fell in love with their first album. I was always a Blur fan, and then when I heard this stuff, I was like, "What? You're kidding me? Same guy?" So like this is early 2000s, Gorillaz, and this is a song off their first album, and it's called "Rock the House." And I think it's sort of, I don't want to alienate anybody, but it definitely taps into what I think is this really great old hip hop sound. So I thought, John likes some older hip hop, so let's see if this resonates with him. So feel free to go off and give that a listen. Come back, tell me what you think.
Will do.
Awesome.
I know you like that. You wanna try that? It's like a flashback. So shake your ass crack. I got the boss to rock the salsa, funk or blueser, any groove to make you move. Cause taking you to another landscape is my mandate. I'm highly animated, even though I'm decomposing. So if your feet is frozen, I'ma die to see you open. MC rhyme and the DJ spin, I want y'all to just get down. Now while the MC rhyming and the DJ cutting, I want y'all to just get down. And when the MC rhyme and the DJ spin, I want y'all to just get down. Now while the MC rhyming and the DJ cutting, I want y'all to just get down. Tap your toes and clap your hands.
Yeah, I think I've heard this before, but very vaguely in the back of my mind, and I didn't pay any attention to it. It's ever so slightly familiar, but not, you know. So, yeah, really simple backing. The bass is nice rather than just plodding notes. It does that. I really like the trumpet sample. It's lovely. And then later, the flute kicking in. I thought for a minute it was a recorder because it sounded very cheap and nasty. But then when it kind of went higher, I thought it was a flute. I wonder if it's a nose flute or something. It sounds really hilarious. It's like a companion. It's mimicking the trumpet, but in a kind of tired and knackered way, which is quite funny. And the rapper guy is very interesting. It's of that time. There were, his delivery and his tone, very articulate, for the most part, it's sort of 3 syllables, which again is quite interesting on a four beat. And then it sort of flows into it and then out again. But it does have that, and I don't want to be over critical, but it almost has, and there's a lot around that time and before that sound like that. They almost sound a bit condescending. I guess that may be just me. But I don't know. It's not terrible, and I don't dislike it, but I just get that feeling. Yeah, it is just me, isn't it? Okay. I'll just go back a little bit to that knackered flute because that was very funny.
And the DJ spin, I want y'all to just get down. Now while the MC rhyming and the DJ cutting, I want y'all to just get down. And when the MC rhyme and the DJ spin, I want y'all to just get down. Now while the MC rhyming and the DJ cutting, I want y'all to just get down. Tap your toes and clap your hands. Come on, trace the globe and shake your pants. Just twist your hip and do the dip. Come on, shake and bake, do whatever it takes. Gravitational pull, I have you making a fool out of yourself on the dance floor. Doing backspins, running man, and more. Party down with vigor and candor. Come into the jam or look like a landlubber. And do the aqua boogie, win lots of goodies. Baby, pop the Gucci while the turntables is talking to me. It's awfully groovy, seeing all the treasure and the booty. When the MC rhyme and the DJ spin, I want y'all to just get down. Now while the MC rhyming and the DJ cutting, I want y'all to just get down. And when the MC rhyme and the DJ spin, I want y'all to just get down. Now while the MC rhyming and the DJ cutting, I want y'all to just get down. Tap your toes and clap your hands. Come on, trace the globe and shake your pants. Just twist your hip and do the dip. Come on, shake and bake, do whatever it takes. I wanna get down lower than Atlantis, going toe to toe with an enchantress. Get funkier than Funkadelic wearing Pampers, while you eggheads is on the wall preparing answers, sharing transcripts, while we over here dipping and dancing, rhythm romancing, wallflowers, giving no action, nope. All hours, chillin' and maxin', so relaxing. Opposites attracting, I'ma toss my hat in, lost when the track spin, like I'm on a crack bench, jiggling and wiggling, freaking booty, speaking to the cutie, so belligerent. No religion, just funk the feed on, you'll feel reborn. Negativity, we just dead it like decon. Better lift your feet and just measure the beat on the pulse when it respawn. Tap your toes and clap your hands. Come on, trace the globe and shake your pants. Just twist your hip and do the dip. Come on, shake and bake, do whatever it takes.
Katy Perry, Lady Gaga? I think not. Yeah, that was interesting. It kind of had a. This must have been. I'm just thinking where I was when this was coming out. 2001, 2002, something like that. This kind of almost feels old-fashioned. A sort of mid-90s feel to it, almost like more of a commercial hip-hop, sort of charty hip-hop from then. I'm trying to think of who it reminds me of. It's the samples that make it really interesting. I love that piano as well that was going on with it with the trumpet. Yeah, it's interesting. Let's cut it up with Andy.
All right, I see you're back.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and you gave the Gorillaz track a listen. Was your house rocked?
Yes, ish.
Yeah.
Right, I will start by sort of, saying where I come from with this. I don't really like Blair. I really don't like Damon Albarn.
Okay.
I think he's an asshole. But that doesn't disclude me from liking certain people and their music. That's not a reason. But Blur, I don't know, something about no, it's never really resonated with me. About 3 of their songs have, and that's about it. So Gorillaz. I remember this came out, and I actually listened to the first album, so I have heard this track, but it's fleeting. I mean, it's really, I couldn't tell you it, before. So yeah, and I remember listening to the second album as well. I think I was pretty underwhelmed by that as well, but I don't know if that was my bias. It's a while ago, so
Sure.
completely open mind. Listen to this. First off, lovely trumpet sample, really, really nice. And it's got that sort of dreamy piano underneath it as well. And it kicks it off. It's got a nice beat. It's great. The flute comes in. And I thought at the beginning it was a recorder because it sounds like, it's come from a secondhand junk shop or a pound shop. It sounds absolutely knackered. And then it goes up high, and I thought, yes, it is a flute. But I mean, I presume that's Mr. Albarn playing it. And it is kind of, and again, I presume it's done like that way deliberately, because it echoes the trumpet sample. And it's really clever the way it's done, and it's really enjoyable, and I absolutely loved it. But I had this little scenario in my head very briefly that, they're in the studio and they said, "Oh, we're going to put this flute bit in." And Damon comes and says, "Oh, I'll do this bit." And all the gang over there, I know how to play the flute. And they're just looking at each other going, "Oh my God." It's his band. We can't say anything. And I'm sure it wasn't like that, but I can't help but think that way. That's the way my mind works,
Yeah.
So I absolutely loved that. I thought it was brilliant. And the song itself is fairly, simply structured, and it goes on. The one thing I'll say about the voice on this, and I think you've mentioned it before, it's Del the something or other. I can't
Del the
remember
Funky
that.
Homo Sapien.
Yeah. It sounds, I was going to say dated, it's not dated, it's of its time. And I think on the reaction that I said, it sounded sort of 90s, but actually it's probably late 80s sort of in that style. And I was trying to remember someone that it reminded me of, and maybe Young MC, someone like that, But again, it has that feel. It's me being critical, all right, and but it's not overly critical. It's just got a feel of there was a lot of American MCs at the time doing the same thing, where it's almost over pronunciated, and it comes across as almost too polished and smooth. There was a lot of urban stuff because we were 10 years behind, or at least 5 years behind the US in terms of hip hop and rapping. Our MCs are pretty terrible, and then this urban stuff came through, and it was a very much more sort of relatable. And it kind of reminds me of, you used to see those over polished American stand-up comedians that were just too smooth and just not relatable, and they're very, very good, but they just missed that. And this kind of reminded me a little bit of that, and I think he's going for that because he's not of that time, so he's going for that sound. And that's what it reminded me of, all those guys from then that were just too polished, which gives it again that sort of that feel of of that time rather than of the early noughties, which again is a clever thing to do. So in some ways it rubbed me up, and in other ways, I really appreciated it. So, and he was doing this stuff which I've heard before and a lot, and it's not something I normally Don't get me wrong, I'm not some weirdo, but it was counting the syllables that he raps in threes.
Yeah.
And on a 4-beat, it's really interesting because it gives you the one, as it were, and then it's the 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, and then he'll go into a flow and then back out again and into da da da.
Into the more
and again, that's
pattern.
that's a really it's a very simple technique, but it's a really really effective technique as well.
For sure.
Because it gets going. So
it pulls your brain, it pulls the listener's brain into the pattern so easily that you just get stuck in it. And
and
totally
you're away like an idiot. So I mean, I'd say overall, and he had a very good flow and some nice rhymes. A lot of the rhymes and stuff. Oh, I should have written them down. The ones you kind of expect the way they rhyme. So
you
like,
can predict the next line.
Yeah, but it's one that gives you satisfaction rather than jarring. It's like, got that.
It's like finding a word in a word finder, finishing a crossword.
Exactly. So overall, it's like really excellent production. I wouldn't expect anything less, though. It was a catchy tune, excellent breaks. I did enjoy it. And it didn't have Damon singing, so even better.
Exactly. I don't know what it is. Like, I like some of the, I do like, I obviously I like him a bit more than you. I don't know him as like, you seem to not like him because of who he is as a person. And I don't really know anything about the guy other than his music. And so I don't have a problem separating art from the artist when I don't know shit about the artist as from a human
probably
standpoint.
Better that way.
Yeah, I know, right?
And 95% of the time is better that way as well.
Yeah. Don't meet your heroes and don't read about them on the internet, right? So this is but I really love Del the Funky Homo Sapien, and I like his style and the era that he came from. So whenever he collaborates with him, I tend to gravitate toward those tracks. And this just has such a classic early hip hop sound that's just so organic to me and sounds so like primordial and like coming into its own. And I really love that sort of like Genesis era of hip hop. Honestly, there was probably a little bit before this, but anywhere up until gangster stuff really started to take hold on that West Coast side, which is interesting because he is from West Coast and he literally wrote lyrics for Ice Cube, who is maybe one of the big faces of kind of the gangster rap era out of the West. You know what I mean? But which is nothing against gangster rap. It's hard for a white guy in Podunk, Pennsylvania, to really like understand those lyrics. Now it opens your eyes about stuff and it makes you more socially conscious, which is great. But this is just more fun and playful, and it's like backpack rap, and it's got a little bit of boom bap, but it's mostly just rooted in that sort of that backpack sound that came out during this time. And like I said, he wrote for Ice Cube in the late 80s, and by 91 Cube had helped him produce his first album. So he's definitely from that sort of era that you were talking about. And I love the sampling that you talked about, to the point where that's like forever in my head. Like I'll whistle that around the house and haven't heard this song in weeks. And I'm like, what is that? Where did that come from? So it's just such a lovely song. And I didn't know that sampling was actually from a song called Modesty Blaze, which is a piece by a British jazz musician named John Dankworth, who I need to familiarize myself with a bit more, because
Dankworth,
that was dank. Like that whole melody is sort of the definition of an earworm. So between that, the music, and the very easy to fall into pattern of Del's delivery, this song just bored its way into my brain and will not relinquish its hold. So I had to kind of throw it at you or Greg. And I had no idea that had I known, I may have not even offered it up to you, but I'm glad I didn't know that you had this sort of feel about what is it, Damon Albarn, the guy from Blur, and the sort of the think tank behind this. But I'm glad you gave it a listen. I'm glad you sort of found the redeeming parts of it, despite your opinion of the fella.
Just quickly on Johnny Dankworth, do you know anything about him?
No, I don't. I just know that I love these horns. So I'm now. I'm
Yeah,
like,
he's worth checking out. I don't know him as well as I should. So during this, well, from my point of view, during the 70s, maybe an earlier, probably later, but he was married to a woman called Cleo Lane. And on sort of British TV, you had the sort of entertainment variety shows, even like comedian shows. They'd have a little bit where there was a dance number or a song and dance number or
like a
whatever.
variety show
And
or something like that.
yeah, and you'd have someone, and like Cleo Lane would do the sort of jazz scatting singing, you know,
Yeah, sure.
and it always be with her husband Johnny Dankworth and his orchestra. And that he was a very, very well respected jazz musician. And as her stock rose, his kind of didn't fall, but it kind of got pushed under under her aura, as it were. You know. But yeah, he's definitely worth checking out because he was really highly regarded. You know.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to see. And I wonder if before this or after this, because it caused a firestorm, if more of his works weren't then sampled in some other genres.
I've got it.
Yeah,
You know?
I would think so. So that is like enough to make me look, because if this is the kind of stuff that he's written on his own, which is a standalone pre-sampling, really beautiful music, but then put into this atmosphere and sort of like, you know, with this landscape, it's like, oh my God, this is, I think it's what carries the day of the song. And that's to take nothing away from Damon or Dell, but like that, oh, it's just so great. And it fits so well with the classic hip hop sound. And I'm sure, you know, your boy, Johnny Dankworth had no idea this was going to end up in a genre that may have not even existed when he wrote it. You know what I mean? So it's just the beauty of music and how shit finds a way. And it's
it's nice to think of him sitting there in his sort of wheelchair with a blanket around his knees in some nursing home somewhere and hearing this tune played and go,
yeah,
hang on a minute.
Yeah. Everybody else might think he's a little off, but he's actually it's a
the nurse is going, of course you wrote it, Mr. Dankworth. Of course you did.
Yes, exactly.
now it's time for your porridge.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a cookie for writing it.
No solids.
Oh my goodness. Well, man, thanks so much for giving this a listen. Thanks for being open-minded.
Yeah,
thanks for not telling me ahead of time that you weren't wild on Damon Albarn stuff, so I could throw this up to you and get this reaction. So awesome. I guess I'll go ahead and take it away. Everybody out there into the music world, feel free to jump in. Let us know how you feel about the song or other stuff by the artists involved. And like, share, subscribe if you feel so inclined. You guys really help us out and help the algorithm. Kind of trying to buoy up the numbers on the channel, and with your guys' support, we'll do just that. So thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, we will see you on the next episode of Into the Music.